Hey guys, this is Danimal MTG and welcome to video 3 of my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set review and draft guide. Today we're going to be talking about blue. If you haven't watched my previous videos on white cards and then the multicolor, colorless, and lands, go back and check those out, especially the multicolor set, as I'll talk about how my grading works, as well as some of the mechanics in the set. Our first blue card today is April O'Neil Hacktivist, 3 and a blue for a 1/5 legendary creature, human scientist at rare. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card for each card type among spells you've cast this turn. This is a great value engine, but the stats are rough. Draws you a card basically every turn, which helps her continue to fuel herself. Probably not often drawing multiple cards unless there are a lot of multi-typed creatures in the set, as decks will be mostly creatures. Her floor is that she replaces herself the turn that she comes down though, which is a pretty good place to be. I think this will give you a lot of value if she sticks around, giving her an 8. April, Reporter of the Weird, 2 and a blue for a 2/2 legendary creature, human detective at uncommon. Whenever April deals combat damage to a player, draw that many cards, then discard a card. While the combat trigger is good, the stats are bad and she has no evasion to speak of. I just don't see any valid way that this gets through regularly, and if she isn't getting through for damage, why are you playing her? I'm not giving her a 0 because it can obviously do something, but I think you almost always cut this. This April gets a 2. Bespoke Bow, 2 and a blue for an artifact equipment at uncommon. When this equipment enters, return up to one other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Equipped creature gets +2/+1 and has vigilance, and it equips for 3. Creatures that bounce your opponent's stuff are great. This isn't a creature though. The initial cost is higher than you want to pay for a bounce effect that isn't on a body, and the equip cost is really rough too. You can bounce your own things back to hand to rebuy ETBs though, which is a small additional upside. Also helps with whatever artifact synergies you have. Overall though, I think I'd normally just rather have a creature. This one I could be wrong on, but I'm going to start it at a 4. Buzzbots, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 artifact creature, robot insect at common. It has flying and vigilance, and when this creature dies, draw a card. This almost always replaces itself, is a great spot to put counters, and is an artifact for any artifact synergies that you may have. It'll get in for some damage, then chop block and draw you a card most of the time, and that's decent for a 2-drop. I'm giving this a 6. Crustacean Commando, 1 and a blue for a 0/3 creature, crab mutant soldier at common. When this creature enters, create a mutagen token. 2 pieces of material for 2 mana is a good recipe for a solid card. If you need this card to have some power, you can crack the mutagen token to give it some, or you can use the token elsewhere. Not much else to say about it. I'm giving this a 5. Does Machines, 1 and a blue for an enchantment class at rare. Level 1 has, when this class enters, mill 2 cards, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. You can level it up to level 2 for 1 and a blue. When this class becomes level 2, return up to 2 target artifact cards from your graveyard to your hand. And you can level it up to level 3 for 4 and a blue, and it gains, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put 3 +1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. If it isn't a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot creature in addition to its other types. This gives a lot of value over time. Level 1 lets you load your graveyard and have some card selection. Level 2 gets you back, hopefully, 2 cards from your yard. And 3 just lets you win the long game if you have artifacts to animate. Definitely depends on the number of artifacts in your deck, but if you have 7 to 10 and some mutagen token generation, this is a pretty good value engine. The problem is that it's really slow. You have to put in 9 mana before it starts actually affecting the board. And yes, you can do it over the course of 3 payments, but that's 3 payments that don't help you reach the late game in the meantime. If this format is crazy slow, maybe this does something, but right now, I think I want to start it out at a 4. Donatello Gadget Master, 2 and a blue for a 3/2 legendary creature, mutant ninja turtle at rare. It has sneak for 1 and a blue, and whenever Donatello deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of target artifact you control. Stats aren't great here, but if you have some artifacts to copy, he makes some great value. If you can sneak him, he basically becomes ETB, copy an artifact you control, and he has the ability to do it again later. I wouldn't count on that due to his bad stats and no evasion, but even doing it once will feel like insane value. There are enough artifacts in the set that I think getting the trigger the first time will be easy enough to give him a 7. Donatello, Mutant Mechanic. 3 and a blue for a 3/5 legendary creature Mutant Ninja Turtle at Mythic Rare. You can tap, put 3 +1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. If it isn't a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot creature in addition to its other types. Activate only as a sorcery. Whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on up to one target artifact or creature you control. Stats here aren't bad, and this ability is no joke. If you can just keep animating mutagen tokens, your opponent has escalating problems to deal with. It's slow for sure, but gives you some inevitability if you have artifacts to keep animating. He does have to survive a full turn and has no ETB ability, but you're also only paying 4 mana. I think this Donnie has some capability to run away with games, but requires some extra work. He still gets an 8. Donatello Turtle Techie. 3 and a blue for a 3/4 legendary creature Mutant Ninja Turtle at common. When Donatello enters, if you control an artifact, draw a card. Creatures have to be pretty bad to not be at least decent when they draw a card on ETB. Now this one doesn't always, and when he doesn't, it's pretty bad. Just play this in heavy artifact decks and it'll play well enough though. With mutagen tokens all over the set as well, this isn't a big ask. I'm giving it a 6. Donatello Way with Machines. 2 and a blue for a 1/2 legendary creature Mutant Ninja Turtle at uncommon. As flying, whenever an artifact you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on Donatello. This card is almost the same as the last one. Bad stats if you don't have enough artifacts, so don't play it if you don't. This one, however, needs more artifacts to come down after it, unlike the last one which needs it before. You also don't get the immediate value out of it, and it's a pretty terrible top deck. This may turn into a big beater though if the game goes long. I still don't love it, but it's alright, and I'm starting it at a 5. Donatello's Technique. 2 and a blue for a sorcery at uncommon. It has sneak for a blue. It says draw 2 cards. Divination has unfortunately fallen off in the past few years of Magic as it just ends up being really slow. It's playable, but not great, and gets worse as the format speeds up. Divination for 1 though is amazing, especially if you can turn the bounced creature from sneak into bonus upside like getting an additional ETB. I'm excited about this one, and I think I want to give it a 6 to start. If sneak is harder to do than it seems, this will drop, but this seems like great, easy card advantage. Fugitive Droid. 1 blue for a 1/1 artifact creature robot scientist at uncommon. This creature can't be blocked if an artifact entered the battlefield under your control this turn. Blue, sacrifice this creature, counter target spell that targets an artifact or creature you control. This little guy will chip in for some early damage in an artifact deck, triggers artifact payoffs itself, and later can either chump block and or counter a removal spell aimed at one of your creatures. It's a solid little 1-drop. I give it a 5. Kitsune, Dragon's Daughter. 4 blue for a 6/6 legendary creature Fox Warlock Avatar at Mythic Rare. It has Vigilance, and whenever Kitsune enters or deals combat damage to a player, you may exchange control of 2 other target creatures controlled by different players. I think this sounds slightly better than it is. That's not to say it's bad, because it's a pretty good card, but it's very easy to focus on the dream scenario here, where you give away a throwaway creature that you already got value with for your opponent's bomb. It certainly can do that, and you basically win the game at that point. That situation is just not going to line up very often though. We also have to look at when you don't have other creatures or don't have creatures you want to give up. In that case, it's mostly a 6/6 Vigilance for 6. That's still not terrible. I don't think you ever cut this, but I don't think it's quite a bomb either. I'm going to start it at an 8. Kitsune's Technique. 4 blue for an instant at rare. It has sneak for 1 and a blue, and target opponent mills half their library rounded up. Kitsune's Technique doesn't seem very related to Kitsune herself, but that just seems like more of a flavor fail to me. Speaking of fail, Kitsune's Technique is not good. Unless there are dedicated mill decks in the format, this just does essentially nothing. and there aren't. Sometimes worse than nothing, it can help your opponent. If this was always 2 mana, I still don't think I'd play it, but it's 2 mana and bounce my own creature to do it. If I ever see my opponent pay a full 6 for this, I'm stoked, because they mostly time walk themselves. Being instant is better than sorcery, but I think I'd still avoid this card. Just don't play it. I'm giving it a 0. Krang, Mastermind. 6 blue for a 1/4 legendary artifact creature Utrom Warrior at rare. He has affinity for artifacts, which means he costs 1 less for each artifact you control. When Krang enters, if you have fewer than 4 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference, and Krang gets +1/+0 for each other artifact you control. Krang seems really good. An average play pattern with him will be to play him for 6 mana with 1 card in hand, and you have a 3/4 that draws you 3 cards. And that's about the most average that it'll be. Its ceiling is a 2 mana 7/4 that draws you 4 cards. That card would be banned almost everywhere. Obviously, that's mostly a Dreamland scenario, but I think this draws you 2 to 4 for 4 to 6 mana often enough to be a bomb. This gets a 9. Metalhead. 4 and a blue for a 4/4 legendary artifact creature robot turtle at uncommon. When Metalhead enters, return up to 1 other target artifact or creature to its owner's hand. Red, sacrifice another artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Metalhead. He gains Menace and Haste until end of turn. This will be good in any blue deck, but especially in blue-red so that you can activate its ability easily. Cast him and bounce something, the next turn sack an artifact so that he has Menace, and then your opponent is in a world of hurt because you can always sack more to grow him at instant speed. And that's without looking at him being a 6 mana 5/5 with Menace and Haste if you play him that way. This will end people and gives you serious tempo while doing it. I'm giving this an 8. Mind Transfer Protocol. 2 and a blue for an instant at common. Until end of turn, target artifact or creature becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 4/5. Draw a card. This is essentially a combat trick that replaces itself, and sure, you can do some tricky things with it, but it's too expensive to want to run very often. Combat tricks are better this set, so I'm going to start it at a 4, but it wouldn't surprise me if this went lower. Mondo Gecko. 1 blue for a 2/3 legendary creature lizard mutant at mythic rare. 1, discard a card. Until end of turn, Mondo Gecko becomes the color of your choice and gains hexproof from that color. When Mondo Gecko deals combat damage to a player, draw a card for each color among permanents you control. I like the words on this card, but with bad stats and no evasion, you're basically never getting a hit in with him. Sure, if you can get this going, it's great value, but if you can get it going, your opponent probably has no board anyway and you're already winning. Don't love it. Very similar to the combat damage April we saw earlier. It's slightly better than that though, so I'll give it a 4. Negate. 1 and a blue for an instant at common. Counter target non-creature spell. This is a reprint and almost never plays very well in limited. A normal limited deck will only have about 5 to 10 things that this can hit at most, and you have to have this card and the mana up at the same time to even hit it. This set doesn't seem to have an inordinate amount of non-creatures either. This just leaves us as a dead card too often for me to want to run it. Counterspells get a slight buff this set because of countering a sneak that's basically 1.5 for 1 because they bounce the creature as part of the cost, but you're mostly just going to want creature counters if you're doing that. This gets a 2. Ooze Spill. 1 blue for an instant at uncommon. Counter target spell, create a mutagen token. We just talked about how counters would get a bonus this set due to countering sneak, but this is basically cancel with slight upside, and cancel isn't normally a very good card. Yeah, this one gives you a mutagen token as well, but you have to have the mana open at the right time to make it work, and the more expensive the counter, the harder it is to line up. Remember to keep an eye on blue mana though when you try to sneak, as sneak can be countered. I think this is the only creature counterspell in the set though. I'm giving this a 4. Ray Fillet, Man Ray. 3 and a blue for a 3/3 legendary creature fish mutant at uncommon. He has flying, and when Ray Fillet enters, create a mutagen token, and 2, remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control, draw a card. This is the mutagen payoff you want. It basically turns your mutagen tokens into 3 mana draw a card, and it's even better than that because you can put the counter somewhere first, hit your opponent, and then remove it to get the card. I'm very surprised that the ability isn't sorcery speed only, but since it isn't, you can just wait until your opponent's end step or when your opponent tries to remove a creature with a counter on it to get as much information beforehand as possible. I'm starting this at a 7, but I'd guess it would go higher, not lower, if I'm wrong. Renee, Temporal Apprentice, 3 blue for a 4/3 legendary creature human wizard at rare. She has flash, and whenever Renee enters, return each other non-land permanent that entered this turn to its owner's hand. This card can do some fun things, but it's mostly going to be a situational, expensive mana war. You have to have the mana up at the same time an opponent plays something. Sometimes you'll get lucky and get a creature or two, maybe some mutagen tokens, but I don't think that'll happen all the time. This gets a lot better though if you have a lot of instant speed interaction. Hopefully your opponent plays some stuff pre-combat and then you can flash this in to bounce their stuff and ambush block something. That'll feel great. This should normally give you a pretty good 2-for-1, so I'm giving it a 7. Retro Mutation, 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura at common. As flash, enchant creature. Enchanted creature is a turtle with base power and toughness 0/1. It can't attack and loses all abilities. Blue always gets one of these type effects in every set, but normally it's at 1 mana. At 3 mana with flash, you can look at this as a removal spell with some extra steps because you can flash it onto an attacker coming at you and then eat it with a blocker. But I think normally I'd rather just have a regular removal spell. If you don't use it that way, you don't get a full 1-for-1 because they're still left with a blocker that they can bounce or remove the enchantment to get back. This is going to start at a 4, but my guess is that if I'm wrong on this one, it'll go lower. Return to the Sewers, 3 and a blue for an instant at common. Target creature's owner puts it on their choice of the top or bottom of the library. You create a mutagen token. Blue also gets one of these almost every set, and everyone, myself included, normally underestimates it. Top or bottom of the library is way better than a normal bounce effect, as it's either gone effectively forever or blocks their next draw. Use this on a sneak creature or against a fight spell and get crazy tempo. Also leaves a mutagen token behind for good measure. Giving this a 6. Sewer Valence Can, 1 blue for an artifact at common. It has flash, and whenever this artifact enters or leaves the battlefield, you may tap or untap target creature. I like this a lot more at first because I thought it was a creature. As a non-creature artifact, I don't like it as much, but it still brings solid value. At its ceiling, this card is a 5 mana draw 2 and taps or untaps 2 creatures. That's pretty flexible. And you can pay the 5 in 2 installments and just tap one thing twice. It helps you get to the later stages of the game and hopefully gives you time to make use of the cards it gives you. I'm giving this a 6. Stockman, Mad Flyantist, 4 and a blue for a 3/4 legendary creature, insect mutant scientist at common. As flying, whenever Stockman enters, draw a card then discard a card, and island cycling for 2. I don't like this as much as the plane cycling card in the cycle, but it's okay. Looting has some inherent value, and being able to find your land drop or fix your mana earlier has some value as well. I'm going to start this at a 5. Turtles in Time, 5 blue for a sorcery at Mythic Rare. Return all creatures to their owner's hands. Each player may shuffle their hand and graveyard into their library, then each player who does draws 7 cards. Exile Turtles in Time. This has all the problems of a board wipe and then some. Sure, it can help when you're behind, but only for a turn as your opponent gets to rebuild first because this is so expensive. If you bounce 4 to 5 of their creatures and they want to keep them, they just don't wheel. If you don't bounce anything important, then they wheel and have a fresh 7 to use first. I can't see this being great and limited. I'm giving it a 1. And our last blue card today is Utrom Scientists. 2 and a blue for a 2/2 artifact creature, Utrom Robot Scientist at common. When this creature enters, tap up to 1 target creature and put a stun counter on it. This is good old Frostlinks with the artifact typing on it as well. This will give you some nice tempo while adding to the board, and if you have the artifact synergies that you want, well, then that's an added bonus. I'm giving this a 5. And that's it for the blue cards in my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set review and draft guide. Next up, I'll be looking over black cards, so come back and check that one out when it's up. If you like this one, like, share, and subscribe so that I can help out more people. Thanks.